Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. So King Z lay on the grass, staring blankly at the sky above. I've traveled through time. This is his 18th year in this world, and he still hasn't recovered. His memories were still stuck on Earth, he was just getting ready to sleep. The moment she opened her eyes, she became a newborn baby. Even more outrageous is that he has never been held by his biological parents. It was scooped up by a pink, flying fairy that looked like a kitten. That elf is called Dream. A legendary Pokémon, possessing the genes of all Pokémon, capable of learning any skill, and also quite mischievous. The Dream took him to the World Tree, where he remained imprisoned for over a decade. There was no adoption, no childhood sweetheart, and no family warmth. He was accompanied only by a few elves. A gentle breeze rustled through the air. So King Z turned his head, and a small orange-red dragon fluttered its tiny wings and landed beside him. The little dragon tilted its head to look at him. It was a miniature dragon, and he named it Little Orange. "Why are you rushing me? I'm going to lie down for a bit longer." So King Z turned over. The dwarf dragon smacked him with its tail in displeasure. So King Z sighed and sat up. He organized his experiences from the past 18 years. This is the world of Pokémon, where humans and Pokémon live in harmony. He was abducted by Dream shortly after birth and spent more than a decade at the World Tree. They were not released until they reached adulthood. He understands this world better than most natives. Although Dream locked him in the World Tree, it didn't really make him a prisoner. Cell phone, tablet, and internet access are all included. They were all borrowed from various places by Dream. With these devices, he had already figured out the world. There are 7 leagues across 7 continents. He is currently in the Asian League, or Asia League for short. This is the home of Dragon-type Pokémon. It's said that all Dragon-type Pokémon can be found here. But so King Z wasn't obsessed with collecting spirits. He was more concerned about his own situation being an undocumented person, a complete undocumented person. No ID card, no household registration, no identity documents whatsoever. So I need to go to a human city first and get an ID card. So King Z muttered to herself. The Dragonite nodded on his shoulder. Aside from the issue of being an unregistered resident, his own circumstances are ridiculously good. He received all the perks from the time travel. Aura power, Viridian power, superpower, plus superpowers. He possesses 4 abilities. Its physical attributes are comparable to those of a champion-level Pokémon. In a real fight, it could go toe-to-toe with a champion-level Pokémon. More importantly, he can eliminate the side effects of spirit skills. For example, the stun effect of the death ray, and the cooldown time of the flame burst. How monstrous this ability is, those who know. He also has 4 elves. Dragonite, the starter Pokémon given by Mew, with champion-level strength. He was his best partner and strongest fighter at the World Tree. Absolute, champion intermediate. He found it on the outskirts of the World Tree years ago and raised it from a young age. Garchomp, Elite 4 intermediate. He has a bad temper, but he's a formidable fighter. Gallade, Elite 4 intermediate. Evolved from a male Ralts, so King Z doesn't want a cross-dressing master. It was Dream who found a male Ralts, and he had no choice. There are also many spirits in the World Tree. But he only brought these 4, which were enough to defeat most people. A deep dragon roar came from afar. So King Z turned her head, and a huge Dragonite flew out from the forest. Dragonite created a gust of wind, urging him to set off. Okay, I'm leaving now. So King Z stood up and brushed the grass clippings off her clothes. He held the miniature dragon on his shoulder in his arms. Go to the human city first and get your ID card. End this damn illegal life. He looked up at the sky. Sunlight streamed through the gaps in the leaves. It creates dappled light and shadow on the face. 18 years have passed, and we are finally about to step into human society. He was a little nervous, but mostly excited. I hope this world won't let me down. So King Z spoke softly, a slight smile playing on her lips. Dragonite landed beside him and lowered its head, gesturing for him to come up. So King Z flipped onto the back of the Dragonite and sat firmly. Let's go to the nearest human city. Dragonite let out a joyful cry and flapped its wings. It carried him soaring into the sky, flying out of the forest. So King Z turned around and glanced at the vast forest behind her. Yangda Forest is ridiculously large, spanning countless cities. Numerous spirits, treasures abound, and legend has it that legendary spirits dwell deep within. Human exploration of this forest is less than halfway complete. He lived here for 18 years. Goodbye, World Tree. So King Z said softly, then turned her head and looked into the distance. That place is the world of humankind. There are cities, skyscrapers, crowds, and a brand new way of life. Dragonite carried So King Z through the air. The scenery below rushed by. The vastness of Yangda Forest is even more breathtaking from the air. The endless green canopy of trees resembles a giant piece of jade spread across the earth. Occasionally, a few rivers meander through it, shimmering in the sunlight. So King Z put all the Pokémon into Pokeballs. He left only Dragonite outside to help him travel. After all, the appearance of several Pokémon together would cause too much of a commotion. Along the way, he saw many groups of elves. In the woods, a group of Nidorans were foraging for food. On the riverbank, several Seducts stood blankly in the water. In the sky, the fiery sparrows and the Bobo each formed their own flocks. They do not interfere with each other. The further they fly towards the edge of the forest, the lower their Pokémon level becomes. So King Z knew that deep within this forest, there are many champion-level Pokémon, yet he has been able to stay safely for so many years. Thanks to the World Tree aura on my body. That aura caused the forest spirits to instinctively refrain from attacking him. As evening approached, So King Z finally saw the outline of a human city. On the distant horizon, the silhouettes of skyscrapers stood out sharply in the afterglow of the setting sun. We've finally arrived. So King Z sighed softly and patted Dragonite's neck. Signaling it to land, Dragonite found a secluded spot and landed. So King Z put it into her Pokeball and took a deep breath. Next, it's my turn. His eyes gleamed slightly, and an invisible aura emanated from his body. Superpower activated. So King Z's figure vanished instantly. The next second, they appeared on the city streets. Instant teleportation. This move completely stunned a passerby. Holy crap! What is that? The man stared wide-eyed, looking around. All they saw was So King Z standing there nonchalantly. So King Z ignored him and took out her phone to look at the map. The security force is over there. He started walking towards his destination. The security team and the Pokémon Center are located together. This is Asia Union's standard configuration. It can handle various certificates and licenses. It can also handle matters related to spirits. So King Z did not walk fast. I walked around observing the city. The streets were clean. The shops are wide and varied, and the sign for the Pokémon Center is very eye-catching. Trainers often walk their Pokémon along the roadside. Everything was just as he had learned online. Soon, the gate of the guardhouse came into view. The guard at the entrance was a young man in uniform. A Growlithe was lying nearby, looking quite imposing. As soon as So King Z approached, Arcanine stood up. They watched him warily, and the guards immediately went on alert. Stop right there! Who are you? A superpowered individual? Are you registered with the Alliance? Chapter 2. So King Z stopped in her tracks. You can sense the tension in the other person's nerves. That's true, people with superpowers are rare. Anyone would be wary if a strange person with superpowers suddenly appeared. I'm here to get my ID card. So King Z spoke calmly. I was raised by elves and lived in the wild for most of my life. No identification. The guard was taken aback for a moment. Raised by elves? This situation is rare, but it does happen. Some elves develop a protective instinct towards human children. To raise human children as one's own. You wait. The man turned and spoke a few words into the walkie-talkie. Then he looked at So King Z, go in, find window number 3. So King Z nodded and walked into the guardhouse hall. The lobby was quite crowded. There were trainers who came to do business, and ordinary citizens who came to handle their affairs. So King Z went straight to window number 3. A middle-aged woman sat behind the window, her head down as she organized documents. Hello, I'm here to apply for an ID card. So King Z spoke. The middle-aged woman looked up and glanced at him. ID card? You lost your old ID card? No. So King Z shook her head. I was raised by elves and lived in the wild for most of my life. I've never applied for an ID card. The female staff member's expression became somewhat subtle. Raised by elves? Right. Do you have proof? So King Z thought for a moment, then took out a pokeball from her waist. A light flashed as I gently pressed the button. Gallade appeared in the hall. All eyes were immediately drawn to them. Gallade has a slender figure, with a striking contrast between its green hair and white clothes. His arms were adorned with blades that gleamed coldly, his demeanor was aloof and elegant. Could you explain this using telepathy? So King Z asked. I'm too lazy to make up stories. The female staff member nodded, her expression becoming serious. Gallade closed its eyes, and a soft light emanated from its body. The next second, a clear, cold voice rang in everyone's minds. He is a human cub that my princess found in the wild. The princess raised him until he came of age. We then sent him away from the forest and back into human society. This is Gallade's telepathic communication. The ability to transmit information directly into another person's mind caused a moment of silence in the hall. So King Z remained outwardly calm, but inwardly she was giving Gallade a thumbs up. It's written quite convincingly. It took the female staff member a while to come to her senses. He looked down and typed a few words on the computer. I understand the situation. Please fill out these forms first. She handed over several documents, which So King Z took and began to fill out. Name, So King Z. Age, 18 years old. Place of birth, unknown. Guardian, none. These information entries are very easy to fill out. He was already unregistered, after filling out the form. The female staff member asked a few more questions. For example, what skills does he have, and what kind of spirits does he possess? So King Z answered each question in turn, asking whether she had received any training from a trainer. Some answers were embellished. He couldn't possibly claim to have 4 special abilities. It's also impossible for it to battle against champion-level Pokémon. Those were too shocking. Alright, the formalities are basically complete. The female staff member stood up. Your situation is a bit special, it may take a few days to process your ID card. However, we can issue you a temporary certificate first. You can use it to handle other matters. So King Z nodded. Thank you. In addition, the female staff member added. You are a superpowered individual, according to the League's rules. It is necessary to register individuals with superpowers. However, this can be processed together with your ID card. You can do it when you come to pick up your ID card in a few days. Okay. So King Z had no objection. He filed the application, but he had no intention of doing anything illegal. There's one more thing. The female staff member looked at him. Since you were raised by elves, you probably didn't receive any formal education, right? The Alliance has some support policies for people in special circumstances. You can look into it. So King Z's eyes lit up. Support policies? Does that mean I'll get paid? Could you elaborate? The female staff member smiled. Come with me. So King Z followed the female staff member to another window. There was a sign that reads Special Needs Service Center. Xiaozhang, there's a child over here who was raised by elves. Explain the assistance policies to him. The female staff member gave a brief explanation and then left. So King Z and a young male staff member were left behind. The young man glanced at So King Z. He gestured for him to sit down. I've heard about the situation. Was she raised by elves? So King Z nodded. So your Pokémon are all wild Pokémon? I guess so. So King Z's answer was ambiguous. The young man nodded and opened a booklet. According to the Asian Union's regulations, your situation falls under the category of a special group. The Alliance will provide the following assistance. First, ID cards and related certificates will be processed free of charge. Secondly, a one-time settlement allowance of 3,000 Alliance coins. Third, if you are willing to register as a league trainer, you can also receive a trainer's allowance every month. The amount depends on your skill level. So King Z couldn't help but curl up the corners of her lips. Is there money to be made? What are the requirements for registering as a trainer? There are no conditions. The young man explained. As long as you have a Pokémon and are willing to abide by the league rules, you can register, of course, if you're capable. The subsidies will be even greater. New trainers receive 500 league coins per month. As your level increases, the subsidies will also increase. So King Z thought for a moment. He has 4 Pokémon, 2 of which are champion level. This subsidy should be substantial. Then I'll register. Okay, register the sprite first. The young man handed over a form. So King Z began filling in the sprite's information. Dragonite, at the peak of its championship run. Absolute, Champion Intermediate. Garchomp, Elite 4 Intermediate. Gallade, Elite 4 Intermediate. After finishing writing, So King Z handed the form over. The young man took the form and glanced at it. He was completely stunned. Wait, wait. He rubbed his eyes and looked at it again. The pinnacle of championship. His voice even changed tone. This attracted the attention of several people around, and so King Z calmly nodded. Yes, is there a problem? The young man opened his mouth, then closed it again. After repeating this several times, I finally took a deep breath. Are you sure? It's not a typo? Sure. So King Z's tone was flat. If you don't believe me, you can have your elves test it. The young man immediately stood up. Wait a minute, I'll go get the captain. He left quickly. A short while later, she came over with a middle-aged man. A middle-aged man has a calm and composed demeanor. With 6 pokeballs hanging from his waist, he was clearly a seasoned trainer. It's you. The middle-aged man looked at So King Z. You're saying you have a Dragonite at its peak, champion level. Chapter 3. So King Z nodded. Want to take a look? Please. So King Z took out a pokeball from her waist. Press the button, and Dragonite appears in the lobby. It is a size larger than a regular Dragonite, with sharp eyes and an imposing presence. The middle-aged man's expression changed after just one glance. He knows all too well what it's like to be a champion-level Pokémon. That sense of oppression was absolutely real. Take it back. The middle-aged man took a deep breath. I've confirmed it. So King Z returned the Dragonite to its Pokeball. The people in the hall were all staring at him in shock. I will report your situation to my superiors. The middle-aged man's attitude had clearly changed. Your subsidy level may need to be reassessed. No problem. So King Z readily accepted good advice. What about my ID card? Expedited processing, it'll be ready tomorrow. The middle-aged man immediately spoke. In addition, you can apply for the maximum settlement allowance. 5,000 alliance coins. So King Z's eyes lit up even more. The saying he who listens to advice will eat his fill is indeed true. Thank you for your help. No trouble at all. The middle-aged man smiled and waved his hand. By the way, are you interested in joining the league? With your skills, you can directly enter the elite group. Excellent compensation package. So King Z shook her head. I don't plan to do that for now. He wanted to experience the life of a normal person first. I don't want to be tied to the league. Okay, feel free to contact me if needed. A middle-aged man handed over a business card. This is my contact information. So King Z accepted the business card and thanked him. He turned and left the security team. It was already getting dark. The city's neon lights began to flash as So King Z walked down the street. Feeling the long-lost atmosphere of human society, he went to the nearby McDonald's first. We ordered several hundred yuan worth of fried chicken burgers and enjoyed them immensely. Although there was food at the World Tree, you either make it yourself, or the elves help you find it. After 18 years, they've long been craving human food. After finishing his meal, he went to the barber shop to get a haircut. I made myself look more presentable. Then I went to the mall and bought a new outfit. After changing out of my outdoor gear, and going through all that trouble, it was completely dark. So King Z touched her pocket. The 5,000 alliance coins subsidy has been almost used up. But it's okay, he still has some stock. He collected many good things while at the World Tree. Evolution stones, herbs, and berries are all available. He went into a prop shop as he passed by. I sold some common evolution stones and medicinal herbs. He suddenly had several million alliance coins in his hands. Being an elf is definitely expensive. So King Z remarked that even ordinary energy cubes weren't cheap. Not to mention the more advanced ones, but he can make them himself. That saved a lot of money. He might even be recognized as a master breeder. It's just too much trouble, he's only willing to make it for his own elves. Finally, So King Z found a hotel that looked nice. I booked a room and went inside. He first used his superpowers to check the entire room. I was relieved to find that there was no surveillance. Then, he released all 4 elves. Thank you for your hard work. He took out the prepared energy cubes from his spatial backpack. I divided it among the 4 elves and watched them eat happily. A smile also appeared on So King Z's face. From this day forward, we will live in human society. He walked to the window and looked at the city night view outside. Neon lights flashed, and cars and people thronged the streets. I hope the days to come will be a little more interesting. So King Z spoke softly, a slight smile playing on her lips. Behind them, the 4 elves each let out a low groan. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the room through the hotel windows. So King Z finished washing up early and headed straight to the elf center in the city center. He has important business to attend to today, registering as a league trainer and getting a rating to receive subsidies. The Pokémon Center's lobby was spacious and bright, bustling with people, trainers coming and going. So King Z walked to the front desk and found an empty window. Hello, I'd like to register as a league trainer and get my skill rating done. The receptionist looked up and saw a sweet-looking young girl with a ponytail. She glanced at So King Z and, seeing that he was quite young, probably just turned 18. Okay, please fill out this form first. The receptionist handed me a piece of paper and a pen. So King Z took the form and glanced at it. The form requires you to fill in your name, age, ID number, and the type and level of the Pokémon you own. He picked up a pen, quickly filled in the basic information, and wrote Dragonite, Absol, Garchomp, and Gallade in the Pokémon species column. He left the strength column blank. So King Z pushed the form back. The receptionist took the form and paused for a moment when she saw the types of sprites. These 4 Pokémon are all difficult to obtain, especially Dragonite and Garchomp, which are true pseudo-legendary Pokémon. She noticed the strength section was empty and looked up in confusion. "Sir, why didn't you fill in the Pokémon's strength level? I'm not entirely clear on the specific level divisions." So King Z spoke the truth. He spent 18 years at the World Tree, relying entirely on intuition to judge the strength of the elves. He had never tested them according to the Human League's ranking standards. "It's okay if you don't fill it in." The receptionist smiled and spoke gently. "Anyway, the Pokémon's strength needs to be tested by a machine, and their friendship level also needs to be measured." "Why do we need to measure intimacy level?" So King Z was somewhat curious. "To prevent people from using other people's Pokémon to fraudulently obtain large subsidies," the receptionist explained patiently. "This has happened before. Some people register using a senior's high-level Pokémon, hoping to gain access to high-level trainer privileges. Later, the league stipulated that a friendship level test must be conducted, and only those that meet the requirement can prove that the Pokémon belongs to you." So King Z nodded. The rule was reasonable. He reached for his waist, took out 4 Pokeballs, and placed them on the front desk. "Thank you for your help." The receptionist stared at the 4 Pokeballs on the table, her gaze momentarily lingering. "These 4 Pokeballs are very old, the red and white surfaces are severely worn, with some areas showing the primer, and the metal buttons are also dull. This is something Dream found in the trash heap for him, it's good enough that it works." The receptionist felt a pang of sympathy. This boy probably came from a poor family and couldn't even afford a decent Pokeball. The pseudo-legendary Pokémon he was playing with was likely a low-level baby he'd found in the wild. "Please wait a moment, I'll test it for you right away." She placed the 4 Pokeballs into the semi-transparent detection device and pressed the start button. The instrument emitted a slight hum, and data began to be read on the screen. Several trainers passing by gathered around, queuing up to handle their business and watching the commotion. Drib. The instrument beeped, and the data for the first Pokémon popped up. Pokémon, Gallade. Strength rating, Intermediate King level. The receptionist's casual gaze fell on the screen, and she froze instantly. She rubbed her eyes hard, thinking she was seeing things. Intermediate Elite 4 level? An 18-year-old boy actually possesses an Intermediate Elite 4 level Pokémon? Several trainers nearby also saw the data and their eyes widened in surprise. "Holy crap, a Heavenly King level? Am I seeing things?" A trainer wearing a baseball cap exclaimed. "How old is this kid? He couldn't reach the Heavenly King level even if he trained in the womb." The other fat man gasped. Chapter 4. The receptionist swallowed hard, her fingers trembling slightly. Before she could speak, the machine beeped again. Pokémon, Garchomp. Strength rating, Intermediate King level. The hall fell silent for a second, then erupted into an even louder murmur. Another champion-level opponent? And it's the pseudo-legendary Garchomp. 2 Heavenly King level fighters. Which powerful family's young master is experiencing life here? The trainers looked at each other, their faces filled with horror. The receptionist was breathing heavily, her eyes glued to the screen. "That's not all, there are still 2 Pokeballs that haven't been tested." Drib. The third data update. Elf, Absol. Strength rating, Champion Intermediate. Holy crap! The receptionist immediately started swearing. She had received rigorous professional training and would never say anything out of line, even if she lost her composure, but she simply couldn't hold it in now. Champion level. How many champion-level trainers are there in the entire Asian League? The ordinary-looking boy in front of me, holding a tattered Pokeball, actually has a champion-level Absol. The trainers around were completely stunned, their mouths agape, unable to utter a sound. The commotion in the hall attracted even more onlookers, all staring at the screen, their scalps tingling with unease. Drib. The final notification sound rang out. The fourth data point appeared in the center of the screen, and the font turned a glaring red. Pokémon, Dragonite. Strength rating, Champion Peak. The entire room was deathly silent, you could hear a pin drop. The receptionist's legs went weak, and she almost collapsed to the ground. She braced her hands on the table, staring intently at the champion's peak, her mind completely blank. The dragons at their peak, with their championship caliber, were more than capable of challenging the league's top 4. This is outrageous. An 18-year-old boy with 2 intermediate-level Heavenly Kings, 1 intermediate-level champion, and 1 peak-level champion. Is this machine broken? The trainer in the baseball cap swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Impossible. This is the Alliance's latest testing equipment, it can't possibly be wrong. The fat man stared intently at So King Z, his eyes filled with awe. The receptionist took several deep breaths before she could barely find her voice. She looked at So King Z, her eyes filled with shock and doubt. Sir, are these elves truly yours? This power is terrifying, she couldn't help but suspect that it was the spirit of some reclusive master, which the boy had stolen. So King Z remained calm, ignoring the ghostly stares of those around her. Be mine. I was raised by elves since I was a child, I'm an orphan. These elves have been with me since I was little. So King Z's tone was flat. The receptionist paused for a moment, then suddenly realized what was going on. It turns out he was a child adopted by elves, although rare, this situation does exist. That's normal, there are many orphans. Some high-level wild elves are overflowing with maternal love and will raise abandoned human babies. If that's the case, it's understandable that these high-level elves, who grew up with him since childhood, possess terrifying strength. Well, let's take a look at the intimacy test results. Press another button at the front desk. The screen then switches to display the friendship level values of the 4 Pokémon, with a maximum score of 255. Gallade's friendship level, 255. Garuda's friendship level, 255. Absol affection, 255. Dragonite friendship, 255. Full. Another collective gasp filled the hall. Friendship cannot be faked. A perfect friendship level means that the Pokémon has absolute trust and dependence on its trainer, and is even willing to give its life for them. This is enough to prove that these elves definitely belong to the boy in front of him. The receptionist's gaze towards So King Z completely changed, now filled with awe and respect. Mr. Su, the test is complete. She even changed how she addressed people. I have uploaded all your information to the Alliance headquarters. Because your Pokémon's strength is too high, exceeding our branch's approval authority, the rating and subsidy disbursement require headquarters review. The Alliance will notify you directly of any subsequent results. So King Z nodded. Okay, I understand. The receptionist carefully took the 4 old Pokeballs out of the machine and handed them to So King Z with both hands. Mr. Su, your Pokeball is severely worn, its internal life support system may be affected. She kindly reminded him. For the sake of your Pokémon's health, we recommend that you replace its Pokeballs with a new batch as soon as possible. So King Z took the Pokeball, glanced at the mottled marks on it, and agreed. Okay, thanks for reminding me. He hung the Pokeball back on his waist, retrieved his identification, and turned to exchange it for a new one. So King Z walked out of the Pokémon Center. The sun was shining brightly on the street, and a gentle breeze carried the heat of early summer. He touched the few tattered Pokeballs at his waist. These balls were dug out of a junkyard by Dream, the paint on the outer shell was completely peeled off, and the buttons were malfunctioning. The receptionist was right, it's time to get Dragonite and the others a better living environment. His gaze swept across both sides of the street, and he quickly spotted a luxuriously decorated elf item store. Behind the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, a variety of rare and dazzling props are on display. So King Z stepped inside. The store was well cooled, and the air was filled with a faint, pleasant fragrance of tree fruits. A sales assistant in a smart uniform came up to us. The sales assistant sized So King Z up and down. So King Z was dressed in ordinary casual clothes, without any eye-catching brands, and the pokeball hanging from her waist was tattered and worn. A hint of disdain flashed in the sales assistant's eyes, but she maintained her professional smile. "Sir, what would you like to order?" The sales assistant's voice was neither warm nor cold. So King Z walked to the pokeball counter, her gaze sweeping over the expensive items. "Give me dozens of deluxe balls, and a brand new space backpack." So King Z's tone was flat. The sales assistant was stunned. "Dozens of luxury balls?" The luxury ball is the highest grade living pokeball on the market, featuring top-notch environmental simulation and space expansion technology, with a single ball costing up to 100,000 league coins. An ordinary trainer would have to grit their teeth to buy just one, and this guy is talking about dozens? "Sir, are you sure it's dozens of luxury balls?" The sales assistant's tone was full of doubt. "This is no small sum, you." So King Z was too lazy to listen to her nonsense, so she took out the Union Bank card she had just obtained from her pocket and slapped it on the glass counter. "Swipe card." The sales assistant took the card with some skepticism and swiped it on the POS machine. The balance figure that popped up on the screen made her pupils contract sharply. Millions of alliance coins. The sales assistant gasped, her wrist trembled, and she almost dropped the POS machine. She suddenly looked up, and her gaze towards So King Z instantly changed, filled with awe and ingratiation. "Yes, sir. I'll process it for you right away." The sales assistant's voice rose 8 octaves, and she bent over so low her back almost touched the ground. Soon, dozens of luxurious black and gold balls were neatly stacked on the counter. Next to it was a high-tech, all-black backpack. So King Z picked up a deluxe ball, feeling the coolness of its metal casing. He pressed the button on the old pokeball at his waist. A flash of red light, and the massive body of Dragonite appeared in the spacious store. Dragonite looked around curiously and let out a low roar. Chapter 5. The commotion drew the attention of several other customers in the store, who all turned to look. "Holy crap! Dragonite! What an incredibly imposing presence! This one's a whole size bigger than a normal Dragonite. This is absolutely top-tier breeding quality." The customers whispered among themselves, their faces filled with shock. The sales assistant stood behind the counter, her legs feeling a little weak. She was closest and could clearly feel the terrifying aura emanating from Dragonite. So King Z threw the old pokeball into the nearby trash can and aimed the luxury ball at Dragonite. "Come back, let's have a new home." Dragonite transformed into a streak of red light and darted into the deluxe ball. The deluxe ball swayed gently in So King Z's hand, making a crisp ding sound. Dragonite transmitted a joyful emotion through telepathy. This ball has a huge internal space, and the temperature and humidity can be automatically regulated, making it much more comfortable than the old, dilapidated balls. Next, he released Absol, Garchomp, and Gallade, switching them into luxury balls one by one. Every time a Pokémon was released, the customers in the store gasped in shock. 2 pseudo-legendary Pokémon, 2 extremely rare and powerful Pokémon. The sales assistant was completely dumbfounded, even her breathing became cautious. So King Z put the remaining luxury balls into her newly bought space backpack and carried it on her shoulder. He glanced at the text message on his phone that had just received indicating a deduction from his account. Originally, the savings of several million were reduced to less than 1 million in the blink of an eye. So King Z's lips twitched a few times, and she felt a pang of heartache. Raising Pokémon is really expensive. This is just for the Pokeball and backpack. If you include the top-tier power cubes, training equipment, and healing items later on, this amount of money is simply not enough. I need to find a way to make money. So King Z turned and walked out of the shop, returning to the main hall of the Pokémon Center. He found a quiet empty seat in the rest area and sat down. Various Alliance news items were displayed on the electronic screen in the lobby. So King Z took out her phone and scanned the QR code at the bottom of the screen. The official Alliance Quest app, tons of quests are waiting for you. Download and installation were completed in one smooth process. Upon opening the app, the interface is very simple, with the homepage divided into 4 sections: Escort, Herbs, Items, and Training. He first opened the Escort section, which was full of bodyguard missions. High-paying escort service for the Silver Company caravan to Golden City. Elite level or above required. A hefty sum is offered to hire a bodyguard to protect the young master during his wilderness training. Room and board included. So King Z shook his head. He hated serving others the most. There were too many rules and it was troublesome. It was even more annoying to encounter an arrogant employer. He decided to quit. Next, open the medicinal herbs section. 100,000 Alliance coins per plant, unlimited purchase of 100-year-old resurrection grass. Looking to buy top-quality miracle seeds. Price negotiable, no upper limit. Urgently need Dragon's Fang powder, willing to pay double the market price. So King Z looked at the bounties and felt a pang of regret. These medicinal herbs and tools are plentiful in the World Tree, they're usually eaten as snacks by the Dragonite. I should have brought more money with me when I left. Now I'm penniless, and it's really frustrating to see so much money lying around unearned. Clicking on the props section again, the first item is a bold, highlighted red pinned bounty. Buying Charizard Megastones at a hefty price. Name your price. If you're willing to sell, I'm willing to buy. So King Z raised an eyebrow. He had a few Megastones in his bag, which Dream had insisted on giving him before he left, but he didn't plan to sell them. This thing is priceless. If you find the right Pokémon, it can dramatically improve your strength. Your own Pokémon might be able to use it in the future, so selling it would be like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. So King Z sighed and clicked on the last sparring partner section. He was stunned at first glance. The tasks in this section were utterly chaotic and beyond his comprehension. 500,000 reward. Looking for a pro to help me raise a beginner Squirtle to Blastoise. Evolution included. So King Z sneered, you think you can nurture someone from their initial form to their final evolved form for just 500,000? The effort and resources spent on this would easily amount to millions, not to mention the risk of failure. The person who posted this must be crazy to want something for nothing, they wouldn't even be a dog. He swiped the screen and continued scrolling down. The next task almost made him vomit blood. Urgent. 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 My male mighty is in heat and very irritable. I need a female mighty for breeding. A generous reward will be given afterward. An image uncontrollably surfaced in So King Z's mind. A female monster with 4 thick, muscular arms, grey-blue skin, and wearing a bikini is flirting with another monster. He suddenly shivered, and goosebumps rose on his arms. This is outrageous. Who even posted this kind of task? He quickly swiped down, trying to wash his eyes. The next one was even more outrageous. I have a male Gardevoir who likes to wear women's clothing. He's introverted and I'm sincerely looking for a female Gardevoir for interaction and guidance. I hope she won't discriminate against cross-dressers and can teach me how to exude feminine charm. So King Z was stunned, and almost dropped her phone. He glanced down at the deluxe ball at his waist. His Gallade had evolved because it stubbornly refused to wear a girl's dress, so it trained hard in fighting during its Ralts era. Is there really a male Gardevoir in this world who actively enjoys wearing women's clothing? The human XP system was so complex that it frightened him. So King Z searched for a long time but couldn't find a single legitimate money-making task. He silently closed the app and stuffed his phone into his pocket. You'd be better off robbing someone than getting rich off this stuff. My stomach promptly let out a protesting gurgle. So King Z stood up. She needed to earn some money for food first, otherwise she would go hungry today. His gaze swept across the lobby signage, locking onto the direction of the combat zone. The battle zone at the Pokémon Center has always been a place for trainers to settle scores, hone their skills, and engage in private bets. It's certainly not short of fools with too much money to burn. So King Z strode towards the battle zone. As you walk down a long corridor, deafening cheers and the sounds of skills clashing come rushing towards you. The combat zone is very large, divided into more than a dozen standard combat battlefields. Sparks flew and water splashed across the field as various spirits clashed fiercely. The stands were packed with trainers watching the spectacle, their cheers rising and falling. So King Z found a seat near the front and sat down. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a suitable prey. Those seasoned veterans with sharp eyes were easily filtered out by him. These people are very shrewd. Even if they wager money, they won't be able to come up with much, and they'll drag their feet when it comes to actually fighting. You need to find that kind of freshman who's well dressed, has clear eyes, and whose face screams "I'm rich and I'm awesome." Just as he was looking around, a figure swaggered in front of him and blocked his way. So King Z looked up and saw a boy about his age standing in front of him. The young man was dressed in a designer sportswear outfit, wore a limited edition mechanical watch on his wrist, and had his hair slicked back. He was clearly a wealthy young master who didn't care about money. The boy looked down at So King Z with disdain in his eyes. He had been watching this person in ordinary clothes for a long time. He was sitting here looking around, not even releasing any elves. He was dressed poorly and looked like a novice from the lower class who had never seen the world. He just received the starter Pokémon that his family bought for a lot of money today, and he's worried about not finding anyone to practice with and show off. He's not confident against experienced players, but against this poor newbie, he's a sure winner. A disdainful smile curled at the corner of the boy's lips. Hey, newbie! The boy raised his chin, his tone extremely arrogant. So King Z leaned back in her chair, looking at him. What's up? The boy took out a brand new, high-end ball, tossed it in his hand, and made a deliberate and exaggerated gesture. You're just sitting here in a daze, too scared to even release your Pokémon. How about a battle? Several trainers nearby heard the commotion and turned to look. Isn't that the young master of the Li family? He's bullying another newbie. This kid's in trouble. Young Master Li's Pokémon is a rare breed that cost millions to buy, and its potential is extremely high. This poor kid probably doesn't even have a decent elf. He's going to get terribly beaten. The crowd whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with sympathy as they looked at So King Z. The boy listened to the surrounding chatter, his smugness growing even stronger. He looked at So King Z defiantly, his eyes filled with disdain. What? You're scared? Afraid I'll kill your trashy sprite? So King Z felt nothing, she even felt a little amused. These arrogant newbies who are ignorant of their own limitations and boast about their family's wealth are just easy prey. Just when I was about to doze off, someone brought me a pillow. A battle is possible. So King Z's tone was flat. However, just fighting isn't fun. How about adding some prizes? The boy's eyes lit up, it was exactly what he wanted. All right. How much are you willing to bet? This young master is ready to oblige. You decide. The boy snorted and held up 5 fingers. Then let's bet 5,000 league coins per Pokémon. 6 Pokémon to bet. 5,000 alliance coins is a huge sum for the average newbie, many people don't even have that much in a month's living expenses. He wanted to make this poor kid bleed a lot, and incidentally establish his authority in front of everyone. The surrounding trainers gasped. 5,000 each? That's a huge bet. Losing all 6 would mean 30,000 yuan, which is half a year's salary for an average person. Does this poor kid even have that much money? Don't try to renege on your debt after losing. The crowd exchanged bewildered glances, all thinking that So King Z would be deterred by this number. So King Z was delighted after hearing this and immediately agreed. Chapter 6. So King Z and young Master Li walked one after the other towards the front desk of the Pokémon Center's battle hall. Set up a standard playing field, the kind with referees. Young Master Li waved his hand and slammed a Golden Union Bank card onto the table. The front desk staff are proficient in using computers. The standard venue usage fee is 1,000 alliance coins, and the referee service fee is 500 alliance coins. Who will pay these fees? I'll do it. Young Master Li raised his chin and glanced at So King Z with disdain. I'll cover this small expense, so that some people won't be unable to even afford the venue fee after losing. So King Z shrugged. He was naturally happy to accept someone willing to be the sucker and cover the costs. After paying, the two were guided by staff to the number 7 battle arena. This is a standard rock and dirt arena, surrounded by a transparent energy shield. A dozen or so board trainers are already sitting in the stands. The referee, wearing a black and white striped uniform, walked to the referee's table in the center of the field. This battle is a 6-on-6 all-out battle. The side whose 6 Pokémon are all rendered unable to battle wins. The referee raised the red and green flags in his hand. Both sides prepare. Young Master Li walked to the challenger's position, took out a brand new high-grade ball, and weighed it in his hand a couple of times. Poor kid, today I'll show you what top-tier talent bought with money really looks like. He hurled the Pokeball towards the center of the field. Go, Zubat! A flash of red light, and a large-bodied bat, a size larger than its peers, appeared in mid-air. It flapped its broad, purple, fleshy wings, opened its blood-red maw, and emitted a piercing shriek, exuding a ferocious aura. The trainers in the stands immediately perked up. This beaked bat is really well bred. Judging by the sheen of its wings, it must eat plenty of high-grade energy cubes. He's also quite large. Although young Master Li is arrogant, he's certainly willing to spend money. That kid over there is in trouble. He doesn't even have a decent Pokeball. How is he going to fight? So King Z stood still, listening to the surrounding discussions, her expression unchanged. He slowly took a luxurious black and gold ball from his waist, it was one he had just changed into. Press the button, and white light bursts forth across the field. Gallade's slender body appeared on the rocky ground. It has a green helmet-like hairstyle, a white body as upright as a pine tree, and sharp blades extending from its arms, gleaming coldly under the light. Gallade stood quietly, exuding a cool and elegant aura. The trainer in the stands who had been praising Zubat suddenly fell silent. After a brief silence, the stands erupted in chaos. Holy crap! Gallade! This poor kid actually has such a rare Pokémon? Doesn't he know how hard it is to catch Ralts? A young trainer wearing glasses slapped his thigh in anguish. What a waste! Why doesn't the male Ralts evolve into Gardevoir? What's the point of evolving into Gallade? A fat man next to him nodded repeatedly. Exactly. Gardevoir is so beautiful. Even as a male, he looks good in a dress. Everyone loves Gardevoir, okay. This kid doesn't understand the true essence of nurturing. Cross-dressing is the way to go. So King Z's lips twitched involuntarily as she listened to what was being said in the stands. What's going on in these people's heads? Gallade turned its head, gave the stands a cold glance, and rubbed the blades of its arms together, making a sickening metallic clang. The noise from the stands immediately subsided. Young Master Li glanced at the Gallade opposite him, his expression changed slightly, but he quickly regained his arrogance. So what if it's rare? My big mouth bat has elite level aptitude. He suddenly waved his hand. Zuspat, use air blade. Let's teach him a lesson. The beaked bat circled once in the air, then suddenly flapped its large, fleshy wings. Several transparent wind blades formed, whistling sharply, and swept towards Gallade in a devastating barrage. The wind blades sliced through the air with astonishing force. It's over. So King Z didn't even make a gesture of giving instructions, simply uttering 3 words. The Gallade in the field moved. Faced with a barrage of wind blades, it neither dodged nor defended. A faint blue light shimmered in his eyes. Whoosh! Gallade vanished instantly. The air blades all missed their mark, striking the rocky ground and carving deep grooves, sending shards of rock flying. Young Master Li's smug smile froze. Where are they? He looked around in panic. The people in the stands stared wide-eyed, searching everywhere for Gallade. It's up there. I don't know who shouted that. Young Master Li suddenly looked up. Gallade had somehow appeared directly above Zubat. Its right arm was raised high, the blade covered in a dazzling white light, and it slashed down with tremendous force. Fighting type move, Brick Break. The giant beak bat had no time to react, it only heard a piercing sound as it cut through the air. Bang! With a dull thud, Gallade's chop landed precisely on Golbat's back. Before the giant beaked bat could even let out a scream, its body plummeted like a kite with a broken string. Boom! The ground was smashed into a large crater, and dust billowed up everywhere. Gallade gracefully tumbled in the air and landed steadily at the edge of the arena without even breaking a sweat. As the smoke cleared, the giant bat's eyes rolled back, half its body was buried in the mud, and it had completely lost consciousness. The entire room fell silent. The dozen or so trainers in the stands all stood up, staring in disbelief at the huge crater in the center of the arena. In a single move, the well-bred Zubat was instantly killed. Instant teleportation plus brick breaking, that speed, that power, this isn't a move a beginner could pull off. The trainer wearing glasses gasped. Fried fish. This is definitely fried fish. The fat man pointed at So King Z and shouted. This guy is playing dumb to fool everyone. He's shameless. The referee hesitated for a few seconds, then quickly raised the red flag. Goblin is unable to battle. Challenger, please switch to another Pokémon. Young Master Li stared blankly at the giant bat in the pit, completely dumbfounded. He spent a fortune buying and breeding those giant beaked bats, and now they're gone? A surge of frustration rushed to his head, and he pointed sharply at So King Z, his voice shrill with anger. You cheated! Young Master Li jumped up and down in a fit of rage. Your Gallade is definitely at near champion level. Near champion level players are prohibited from participating in the beginner arena. You've violated the rules. So King Z spread her hands, looking at him with an innocent expression. You can eat anything, but you can't say anything. So King Z spoke calmly. I didn't cheat, and my Gallade isn't a near champion. He added in his mind, he's definitely not a near Elite 4 member, he's an intermediate Elite 4 member, and Dragonite is a champion. You're talking nonsense. How could someone who's not a near champion level champion possibly defeat my Zubat in one hit? Young Master Li didn't believe it at all and turned to look at the referee. Referee! I demand a skills test for him. The referee frowned. Young Master Li, the Pokémon Center doesn't have a rule prohibiting high-level Pokémon from battling in ordinary arenas. Since both parties agree to the battle conditions, it's not a violation. So King Z looked at the exasperated young Master Li with some impatience. Are you still going to fight? If not, just admit defeat and pay up. He urged. Quickly release the second Pokémon, I'm in a hurry. Young Master Li gritted his teeth, his face ashen. His strongest Pokémon, Zubat, was instantly defeated, the rest of his Pokémon were just easy prey. But if he admitted defeat in front of so many people, where would he put his pride as the young master of the Li family? You're ruthless. Young Master Li gritted his teeth and took out a second Pokeball, throwing it out. Big German Shepherd, crush it! A flash of red light appeared, and a large, muscular wolfhound roared as it charged towards Gallade. This large wolfhound is even weaker than the giant bat, barely reaching the edge of elite level. Against Gallade, an attack of this level is ridiculously slow. Gallade didn't even need to use teleport, it simply turned slightly to the side and easily dodged the Mitiena's attack. Immediately following, a simple, unadorned low kick. Bang! The large wolfhound howled and flew off the field, crashing into the energy shield before sliding down and passing out. Completely powerless to resist. What followed turned into a one-sided massacre. The third one, sold out instantly. The fourth one, sold out instantly. The fifth one, sold out instantly. The sixth one, having just emerged from its Pokeball, was glared at by Gallade and immediately retreated back into its ball, refusing to come out no matter what. The battle ended faster than anyone expected. The referee took a deep breath and raised the green flag. All 6 of the challengers' Pokémon are now unable to battle. The winner is King Z. Young Master Li stood there, clutching the Pokeball tightly in his hand, having lost decisively. King Z was happily waiting to receive her bonus. Chapter 7. After receiving the transfer confirmation slip from the referee, King Z looked at the extra 30,000 yuan in her bank card and was in a great mood. In the corridor outside the combat zone, young Master Li was walking out with a dark expression. King Z quickly caught up with him. "Thank you for your sponsorship, young Master Li." He smiled and waved his phone in his hand. "Next time something like this happens, remember to contact me again, and I'll give you a 10% discount." Young Master Li stumbled and almost fell. He turned his head, stared intently at King Z, and stomped his feet in anger. "You just wait. Young Master has made a note of this." After uttering those harsh words, young Master Li ran away without looking back, his back view showing a disheveled state. King Z put away her phone, turned around and walked back to the battle hall. The one-sided, overwhelming match just now has attracted quite a crowd to watch around court number 7. King Z stood at the edge of the field, her gaze sweeping over the crowd in the stands. "Who else wants to fight?" He raised his voice. 5,000 alliance coins per unit, limited to 6 units, fair and square. The trainers in the stands all took a step back. Everyone looked at each other, and no one dared to respond. "Are you kidding me?" The image of Gallade annihilating an elite-level Zubat in one move is still fresh in my mind. This level of strength is at least at the level of a gym leader, or even close to the level of a near-elite king. Going up to fight isn't a fight, it's just one-sided beatings and giving away money. Nobody's money grows on trees, and nobody wants to be taken advantage of. King Z was not disappointed by the lack of response, he had expected this to happen. He walked to an empty seat in the back row of the stands, crossed his legs, and watched the matches in other venues with great interest. "Anyway, I've already made 30,000 today, so I'm not at a loss. If we sit here and wait, we might just run into another stubborn fool." Not long after she sat down, King Z noticed someone approaching her. He turned his head, and the fat man who had just shouted "women's clothing is the way to go" from the stands was rubbing his hands together and smiling broadly as he approached. Behind the fat man were several young trainers, all looking at him with a mixture of awe and curiosity. Master." The fat man spoke cautiously, his attitude extremely respectful. "We all saw that battle just now, it was amazing. How did you train that Gallade? Its speed and power are simply outrageous." The other trainers nodded in agreement. "Yeah, expert. Could you share some of your experience? We've been stuck at the normal level for ages, our Pokémon's strength just won't go up." Seeing this group of people humbly seeking knowledge, and having nothing better to do, King Z didn't refuse. There aren't any special techniques involved. He adjusted his posture. I was raised by Pokémon from a young age and lived in the forest for 18 years. I never attended a formal Pokémon trainer academy. The surrounding trainers gasped in surprise. Raised by elves. No wonder he's so strong, this is a true beast-like fighting style. So King Z gestured for them to be quiet. For me, the best way to train Pokémon is through actual battles. His tone became serious. Traditional training facilities and equipment for target practice are too slow. True strength is forged in life or death battles. The fat man listened intently. So, expert, what should we do? So King Z pointed in the direction of the gate. Let's go to the countryside. He began to incite these hothouse flowers. Go to the outskirts of Yangda Forest and engage in battle with wild elf tribes. If you can't beat them, run away. That's the best way to train your Pokémon's speed and reaction time. If we can win, the benefits will be even greater. So King Z narrowed her eyes slightly and threw out the bait. The wild is full of loot, like in the territory of Beedrill. Defeating them will give you Beedrill honey. That stuff, if you sold it on the market, a small jar would cost several thousand alliance coins. He patted the fat man on the shoulder. Remember this, the bigger the storm, the more expensive the fish. Risk comes with high reward. Relying solely on the fixed monthly salary from the alliance, when will we ever be able to afford high-level resources? The trainer's eyes lit up instantly. Beedrill honey. High profits. These few words directly hit their sore spot, their lack of money. But, it's dangerous in the wild. It's a timid trainer, a trainer said timidly. Nonsense, how could you make money if it weren't dangerous? So King Z glanced at him. Furthermore, besides actual combat, the Pokémon's aptitude and training direction are also very important. He began to impart specific theories. Many people's Pokémon are dual type, such as water/ground, or grass/poison. Most people try to do both, but end up doing neither well. So King Z held up one finger. The correct approach is to select its strongest potential and nurture it to its fullest potential. If you have high water-type talent, then train water-type moves like crazy, maximizing their power. Use ground-type moves only for support. He paused, then continued. And most importantly, physical strength. Many people only focus on training the power of skills, but neglect the physical training of their Pokémon. Physical strength is the foundation of everything. Without it, no matter how powerful your skills are, you'll be out of breath after just a couple, and in the wild, you're just waiting to die. So King Z kept talking incessantly. He shared his experience of observing the battles of the elves within the World Tree without reservation. The fat man pulled out a small notebook at some point and started taking notes rapidly. The other trainers listened with rapt attention, as if they had discovered a whole new world. So that's how it is. No wonder my Bulbasaur always runs out of steam in battles. A dual system focus on development. This expert's words are truly enlightening. So King Z became more and more enthusiastic as she spoke, and more people gathered around to listen. The entire back row of the stands had been transformed into a mini lecture hall. Before I knew it, the morning had passed. So King Z's throat was dry from talking, so she stopped and glanced at the time on her phone. It's already 12:30 p.m. All right, that's enough for today. So King Z stood up and stretched. The master leads you through the door, but the practice is up to you. I've told you the theory, whether you dare to go out into the wild and take a chance is up to you. The fat man closed his notebook, his face full of excitement. Thanks for the guidance, expert. I'll go buy the antidote this afternoon, and tomorrow I'll go to the outskirts of Yangda Forest to practice against the Beedrill. I'm going to. Let's team up. A group of trainers were excited and discussed their plans to go on an adventure in the wild. So King Z looked at the group of young people who were completely bewildered and nodded in satisfaction. He pushed through the crowd and left the Pokémon Center. The sunlight outside was a bit too bright. So King Z rubbed her empty stomach and found a decent-looking restaurant nearby. He ordered a deluxe steak set meal, sat by the window, and pondered as he cut his steak. While 30,000 yuan is a considerable sum, it's still a drop in the bucket when it comes to raising 4 high-level Pokémon. While it's fun to play against newbies, the chances of encountering a sucker like young Master Li are extremely low. He started thinking about how to make money next. Chapter 8. So King Z sat by the window in the restaurant and stuffed the last piece of steak into her mouth. He picked up a napkin to wipe his mouth and waved to the waiter to settle the bill. Seeing the notification on his phone that several thousand union coins had been deducted, he felt no satisfaction whatsoever. Instead, he sighed deeply. "I'm so worried." He leaned back on the sofa, starting to do the math in his head. The 30,000 yuan he received today would be a huge sum for ordinary people, but it's barely enough to fill a tooth gap for him. Dragonite is at the champion level, while Garchomp is at the intermediate elite level. These two pseudo-divine dragon-type Pokémon are like two money-shredding machines. The amount of high-level energy blocks, rare fruits, and nutrients they consume daily is astronomical. Although Absol and Gallade are not pseudo-legendary, their levels are still high, and they consume a lot of resources. In Yangda Forest, these resources can be obtained simply by seizing territory. But in human society, everything has to be bought with money. It's not just about eating, drinking, and relieving oneself. So King Z rubbed her temples and muttered to herself. These 4 are all quite large, we can't keep them locked up in those luxury balls all the time. We need to raise some money to buy land and build a private elf ecological park, otherwise they won't even have a place to run around. Buying land to build a park in the central city of Asia Union would cost hundreds of millions. So King Z set her goals: make money, buy land, and raise elves. He stood up, left the restaurant, and walked back to the Pokémon Center. The one-sided massacre that morning gave him a taste of success, and he planned to return to the combat zone to try his luck. Let's see if we can catch a few more gullible fools like young Master Li. After walking through the corridor, So King Z pushed open the door to the battle hall. The hall was still bustling with activity, and the various venues were buzzing with excitement. He found an empty seat with a good view and was about to sit down. The trainers around him, as if they had seen a plague, all stood up at once. In less than 3 seconds, the area within 5 meters centered on him was instantly cleared. Several young trainers hid in the distance, pointing and whispering at him. That's him. This morning he used Gallade to one-shot young Master Li's Gallbat. That was brutal. That wasn't a beginner's match, it was a one-sided massacre. Stay away from him. He specifically targets newbies, and if you lose, he demands 5,000 yuan. He's insane. So King Z listened to the discussion, and the corner of her mouth twitched. These people spread gossip way too fast. He sat down helplessly, looking at the hostile stares around him, knowing he wouldn't make any money today. Nobody dared to fight him. So King Z sighed, took out her phone, and opened the Alliance Missions app. Since online battles aren't working, I have to look at legitimate ways to make money. He swiped the screen, scrolling through a jumble of tasks. A reward of 100,000 is offered for a lip-licking woman who can pole dance to celebrate the old man's birthday. So King Z's expression remained blank as she looked past. A bounty of 200,000 is offered to recruit a trainer to capture Jengar at the Ghost Tower. Female trainers with gentle personalities are preferred. So King Z sneered, this requirement was even harder than finding the perfect wife. He scrolled through it for ages, and the more he looked, the more outrageous it seemed. The people who posted this app must have some kind of mental disorder. Just as he was about to turn off his phone, a clear female voice came from behind him. Hey, you! How could you scam a newbie out of their money? So King Z paused, then turned her head. A young girl was standing behind him without him noticing. She wore a dark red fitted jacket with plum blossom patterns, black shorts, and white knee-high socks. What's most striking is her plum blossom eyes, which are mischievous and cunning. She wore her hair in pigtails and a hat with a wooden emblem on her head. Her appearance and demeanor are like she stepped out of a two-dimensional game. Hu Tao pulled out a chair next to her without any hesitation and plopped down, acting as if she were already very familiar with the place. She slammed her hands on the table, leaned forward, and stared intently at So Kingzi with her plum blossom eyes. My name is Hu Tao. This morning you played dumb to fool everyone, using your champion-level Gallade to blast through the enemy's pond and completely humiliate young Master Li. Hu Tao pursed her lips, her tone teasing. The news has spread throughout the entire Pokémon Center. It's not easy for a newbie to scrape together some pocket money, and you've practically beaten him to a pulp. That's so unsportsmanlike. The trainers who were eavesdropping nearby nodded in agreement with Kurumi's words. So Kingzi was extremely annoyed. She put her phone in her pocket and met her gaze without backing down. You can eat anything, but you can't say anything. What does it mean to scam newbies out of their money? He provoked me, insisting on challenging me to a fight. He set the stakes himself. I was just acting in self-defense and trying to earn some extra money on the side. I won through my own skill. How can that be called cheating? Hu Tao chuckled, revealing a small canine tooth. Fine, fine, you won because you were good at it. But those newbies are way too much of a sucker. Hu Tao waved her hand dismissively, looking disgusted. Young Master Li is furious about losing money and is looking everywhere for someone to beat you up, saying he'll spend a fortune to hire a master better. So Kingzi shrugged, looking completely indifferent. He'll bet anywhere, as long as you pay enough, he'll even take on the 4 heavenly kings. You called me here just to say this. Looking at the quirky girl in front of him, he had a gut feeling that she wasn't there to chat idly. Hu Tao stopped joking, cleared her throat, and moved closer. Of course not. I'm here to find a sparring partner. Hu Tao lowered her voice, her tone becoming serious. I have an elite mid-level burning worm. I'm looking for someone strong enough to train it to evolve into a Volcarona. If you can do it, I'll give you 5 million alliance coins as a reward. 5 million. Upon hearing this number, the trainers who were eavesdropping nearby all gasped in shock. Holy crap! 5 million for a sparring partner. Who is this little girl? Does her family own a mine? 5 million could buy a top-tier starter Pokémon, and he just used it to hire sparring partners. The crowd whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with shock and envy as they looked at Hu Tao. So Kingzi was also stunned, a hint of surprise flashing in her eyes. 5 million is indeed tempting. But what surprised him was not only the money, but also Walnut's demands. The evolution of a burning bug into a Volcarona is no ordinary evolution. So Kingzi read extensively at the World Tree and became very familiar with the conditions for Pokémon evolution. Burning Bug is a rare bug/fire dual attribute Pokémon with terrifying potential, but its evolution threshold is also frighteningly high. Most Pokémon can evolve into their final form around level 30, but this is not the case for Incineroar. It must reach level 59, which is the threshold of the Quasi-Elite Four, in order to be reborn from the ashes and evolve into the Fire Moth. This is a long-term project that will require a huge amount of resources and rigorous real-world testing. 5 million? So Kingzi stroked her chin and looked at Hu Tao. There's a lot of money. But for a flameworm to evolve into a Volcarona, it needs to reach a near Elite Four level. This isn't something that can be solved by taking it to fight a few Caterpie, it requires intense, life-or-death battles and top-tier fire-type resources. So Kingzi pointed out the key difficulty incisively. You, a mere mid-elite level burning bug, are still a long way from being a near-elite king. This job is not easy to take. After hearing this, Hu Tao not only didn't back down, but proudly raised her chin. You don't need to worry about that. My fireflies are no ordinary stuff. Hu Tao patted his chest and made a solemn promise. Its qualifications are absolutely fine, its foundation is extremely solid. And he's just a tiny bit away from becoming a near superstar, lacking only the thrill of real combat. As long as your Gallade can put enough pressure on it, it will definitely be able to break through. Looking at her confident demeanor, So Kingzi quickly made a mental calculation. 5 million would just solve his current financial predicament. With this money, the top-tier food for the 4 Pokémon will be secured for the next few months. If Burning Bug is indeed as Walnut says, with high potential and fast evolution, this deal is definitely worthwhile. So Kingzi was intrigued and decided to take a look at the burning insects first. Chapter 9. Seeing that So Kingzi didn't directly refuse, Hu Tao jumped up from her chair with joy. Let's go, let's go. She grabbed So Kingzi's sleeve and excitedly pulled her outside. Let's go to the Pokémon Center testing area now. There's the Alliance's latest qualification testing machine over there. I'll put the burning worm in and test it for you, so you can see my true capabilities. So Kingzi sat in the chair, completely still. He gently brushed Hu Tao's hand away, his tone indifferent. No need to go to the machine. Hu Tao paused, stopped, and looked at him with a puzzled expression. How can we see it without going to the machine? With your mortal eyes, how can you possibly discern an elf's potential? So Kingzi smiled slightly and pointed to her eyes. There's no need to test the Firefly's qualifications. I have superpowers, I can tell just by looking. The moment those words were spoken, the trainers who were eavesdropping nearby erupted in an uproar. A psychic? Holy crap, is this for real? These days, superpowered individuals are rarer than near gods. No wonder his Gallade is so strong, the trainer himself is a monster. The way everyone looked at So Kingzi changed from fear to deep awe. In the world of Pokémon, humans with special abilities are top talents that all major leagues are eager to recruit. Walnut's plum blossom-shaped eyes instantly lit up like searchlights. Superpowered individuals? How cool! She had no doubts whatsoever, on the contrary, she was so excited that her face turned bright red. Hu Tao pulled out an exquisite high-end ball from his waist and pressed the button without hesitation. Come out, my trump card! A dazzling red light bloomed at the edge of the battle hall. Before the red light had even dissipated, a wave of scorching heat swept out. The surrounding temperature suddenly rose by more than 10 degrees, and the air itself seemed to distort slightly from the heat. Several trainers who were nearby were forced to retreat by the heatwave and cried out in alarm. A bug-type Pokémon with pure white fur and 5 red antennae on its head appeared on the ground. Burning insects. Its body surface faintly glowed with firelight, and its 5 red tentacles resembled burning flames, radiating astonishing heat. So Kingzi sat in the chair, feeling the heat wave hitting her face, and her expression became serious. His eyes instantly gleamed with a deep blue light. The superpowers, combined with the power of aura, transformed into an invisible net that completely enveloped the burning worm. In the superhuman vision, the life energy within the burning bug resembled a blazing miniature sun, dazzling and captivating. The energy is pure and without impurities, a perfect fusion of fire and insect energy. The findings were directly fed back into So Kingzi's mind. Pokémon, Burning Bug. Potential, Champion level. Current strength, Elite peak, just one step away from breakthrough. So Kingzi's pupils contracted slightly, her heart trembling violently. Champion potential. This isn't some common, readily available product that you can buy with money. Pokémon with championship potential, as long as they don't die young, will definitely be able to enter the championship arena in the future. Pokémon of this caliber are strategic resources in any league and are simply impossible to circulate. So Kingzi withdrew her superpowers, and the blue light in her eyes gradually faded. He looked up at Hu Tao with a complicated expression. Did you really tame this firefly yourself? Walnut proudly raised her chin and put her hands on her hips. How is that possible? You can't easily find a Pokémon of this caliber in the wild. This is a coming-of-age gift from my elders, isn't that amazing? So King Z clicked her tongue in amazement. You can easily give away a Pokémon with champion potential as a coming-of-age gift. The family background behind Walnut is absolutely unfathomable, probably ranking among the top in the Asian League. No wonder she asked for 5 million for sparring without batting an eye. Hu Tao was extremely pleased to see So King Z's surprised expression. Suddenly remembering something, she leaned closer to So King Z and whispered mysteriously. Oh, So King Z. Since your superpower allows you to see through the aptitude of spirits, is it possible to see through the potential of a Pokémon egg? So King Z looked at her and nodded without hesitation. Able. The superpower allows them to see the energy flow within a Pokémon's body, making it incredibly easy to spot an unhatched Pokémon egg. Hu Tao slapped her thigh suddenly, almost jumping up in excitement. We're rich! We're rich! She grabbed So King Z's arm, so excited that she couldn't speak coherently. Let's go play egg gambling! The black market has tons of blind box Pokémon eggs dug up from ancient ruins and dangerous secret realms. Those eggs look identical on the surface, it's all a matter of luck and guessing blindly. Walnut waved her little fists, sketching out a blueprint. I'll provide the capital, you use your superpowers to select eggs with higher potential. If we join forces, we can definitely win everything the black market boss has to offer. We'll split the profits 50/50ths. How about that? So King Z looked at her excited, flushed cheeks, her mind racing. Egg gambling? Using superpowers to see through the potential of Pokémon eggs? This is practically a game changer, it's a sure win. But then he thought again, 50/50ths? On what basis? He has a superpower. He can spot high-potential eggs with 100% accuracy. Is he lacking capital? He has hundreds of thousands in his bank account, he could easily find bargains on the black market and snowball his wealth. So King Z's eyes darted around, and she decisively pulled her arm away. He put on a stern face and refused righteously. No, I won't do it. Gambling is wrong, and as an honest trainer, I refuse to participate in speculation. Hu Tao was stunned, looking at him with a puzzled expression. You're not going to make money even if you have the chance? Are you out of your mind? So King Z appeared righteous and awe-inspiring on the surface, but secretly she was delighted. Thank you, Walnut. If you hadn't reminded him, he really wouldn't have remembered that. This way of making money is so unconventional, it's practically a wealth code tailor-made for him. He can handle that on the black market himself. Isn't it better to keep it all to himself? Why should she share half? Hu Tao felt somewhat disappointed seeing So King Z's unyielding attitude. She pouted and muttered to herself. Fine, don't do it then, you weirdo. However, Hu Tao, with her carefree personality, quickly forgot about the egg betting incident. She pointed to the burning insects on the ground that were still emitting heat. What about the burning worm sparring partner? You can't possibly refuse a 5 million reward, can you? So King Z looked at the burning insect and nodded perfunctorily. He didn't agree immediately, he was still thinking about the egg betting scheme. Chapter 10. Yes, I can. So King Z gave an affirmative answer. However, let me be clear from the start, my training method is very special, and the process will be extremely tough. That's fine. Hu Tao readily agreed. What's a little hardship if I can evolve into Volcarona? She took out her phone and opened the Union Bank transfer interface. I'll pay half as a deposit for the 5 million reward. That's 2.5 million. Hu Tao waved her phone. I'll settle the remaining half once the burning bug evolves to near Elite 4 level. So King Z nodded. With 2.5 million in hand, that should be enough to solve our immediate crisis. Hu Tao stared at the burning insect, her brows furrowed slightly, and worry showed in her eyes. However, there's one thing I'm curious about. How do you plan to train it? Walnut stretched out a finger and drew a circle in the air. The burning bug is only at the elite mid-level. To reach the quasi-heavenly king level, there are 6 minor realms and 1 major realm separating you from the elite advanced, elite peak, and the initial peak of the pavilion master. Hu Tao's ramblings became increasingly outrageous, and her voice unconsciously rose in pitch. Under normal circumstances, even top-tier elves, with the massive resources of their families, would take at least 2 to 3 years to complete this journey. It also involves countless real-world challenges, overcoming plateaus, and even psychological counseling. I'm wondering, if giving you 2 months is enough time to train it to near top-tier level. So King Z burst out laughing after hearing this. 2 months. He shook his head and wagged his right index finger. It's been too long. Hu Tao was stunned, her plum blossom eyes filled with confusion. So how long do you think it will take? Half a month. So King Z held up 2 fingers. You'll have to pay more. Hu Tao stared wide-eyed, her face showing an expression as if she were looking at an idiot. Are you crazy? She slammed her hand on the table and stood up abruptly, causing the surrounding tables and chairs to shake. Half a month? From elite intermediate level to near king level. Do you think this is like using a cheat code in a game? Several trainers who hadn't gone far heard the commotion and turned to look. Reaching near superstar status in half a month? That's an outrageous claim. Even with the guidance of the 4 heavenly kings of the Alliance, it wouldn't be possible to achieve this speed. This kid's obsessed with money, he'll even spout such nonsense. Passers-by whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with disdain as they looked at So King Z. Hu Tao glared at him angrily, hands on her hips. You're just bragging. I may be rich, but I'm not stupid. Such an outrageous training speed is simply impossible. Hu Tao shook his head repeatedly. An elf's body has its limits. Forcibly increasing strength in a short period of time will inevitably deplete one's life force, leaving behind irreparable hidden injuries. I don't want my fireflies to become junk. So King Z did not argue. He sat in the chair, calmly extending his right hand, palm up. A soft green light shone in his palm. The light was full of life, and as soon as it appeared, the heat in the air was soothed. The surrounding potted plants sensed the call, their leaves turned green at a visible speed, and some even sprouted new branches. The burning insects on the ground sensed this aura and comfortably squinted their eyes. He leaned over and nuzzled So King Z's hand. Its fatigue from unleashing the flames instantly returned to its peak. Hu Tao's plum blossom pupils suddenly contracted as he stared intently at the green light in So King Z's hand. What's this? She gasped, her voice trembling. The power of evergreens. So King Z spoke calmly, without the slightest hint of boasting. I can instantly heal any injury to an elf and restore their stamina with the power of eternal rock. Hu Tao froze on the spot, her mind blank. As the heir to the dojo, she had read countless ancient books since childhood and knew all too well the significance of the power of Tokiwa. That is the legendary power blessed by the forest, the healing light that all elves dream of. You. She pointed at So King Z, her finger trembling violently. Aren't you a superpowered person? Who says a person can only have one special ability? So King Z countered with a question. He put away the green light and placed his hands crossed on the table. I will use extremely intense, high-intensity combat training to squeeze the full potential out of the burning bugs. As long as it has a breath left, my power of everlasting will bring it back to life. By combining my superpower with the guidance of my mental energy, there will absolutely be no lasting effects. So King Z looked at Hu Tao, a confident smile curving her lips. Half a month is enough. Hu Tao opened his mouth wide, speechless for a long time. Tokiwa no Shikara Ka superpower. These 2 abilities, either of which would make major leagues fight tooth and nail for them, are actually concentrated in one person. The chosen one. Walnut muttered to herself. You're simply the chosen one. The way she looked at So Kingzi completely changed, from admiration to fervor. Walnut herself is going to inherit the dojo, and she has extensive connections within the league. She knew all too well what talent possessing both of these abilities meant to the alliance. If such a person doesn't die young, they will surely become a top-tier powerhouse who dominates an era. Hu Tao immediately picked up her phone and her fingers flew across the keyboard. She logged into the alliance's internal encrypted channel and sent a message to report it. A top-tier unconventional talent has been discovered. Suspected of possessing both superpowers and the power of the Tokiwa Plateau. His strength is unfathomable, we suggest the league's leadership pay immediate attention. After sending the message, she looked up, her eyes fixed intently on So Kingzi. Quick! Give me your alliance ID. I'll transfer the money to you right now. So Kingzi gave her ID. He glanced at Hu Tao's custom phone, which bore the special logo of a high-ranking member of the alliance, and observed her practiced manner of sending messages. It's obvious at a glance that this girl has a very powerful background in the league. They might be a direct relative of a core high-ranking official. Ding! A notification sounded on my phone. 2.5 million alliance coins had been credited to my account. So Kingzi looked at her account balance and muttered to herself. He was confined to the World Tree for several years and didn't pay attention to personnel changes outside. He had absolutely no idea what the current power structure of the Asia Union was. It's possible that the league's current Big Four have all been replaced by a new batch of players. After all, there should actually be 5 Heavenly Kings. Chapter 11. The two successfully finalized the training arrangements. So Kingzi looked at the 2.5 million yuan deposit in her account and was in a great mood. Let's go. So Kingzi stood up and patted the wrinkles in her clothes. Where to? Walnut recalled the burning bug into its Ultra Ball and followed curiously. Go to the supermarket to buy supplies for outdoor activities. So Kingzi walked towards the entrance of the Pokémon Center without looking back. We're going to train outside the city, so we need to prepare some food and drinks. Hu Tao quickly followed, and the two walked out of the Pokémon Center one after the other. The largest supermarket in the city center was packed with people. So Kingzi pushed an oversized shopping cart, weaving between the shelves. He doesn't look at the price when he takes things. He only throws high-calorie fast food and outdoor gear into the car. Compressed biscuits, high-purity energy drinks, portable tents, and powerful flashlights quickly piled up into a small mountain. Hu Tao followed beside him, looking at the car full of stuff, and couldn't help but purse her lips. What did you buy? She picked up a bag of compressed biscuits, her face full of disgust. When I go out to gain experience, I eat custom-made outdoor lunches from high-end restaurants. How can anyone swallow something this dry and tasteless? So Kingzi snatched the cookies back and threw them into the shopping cart. This is for myself. He continued walking, pushing the cart. If you're going to come along, you'd better not interfere with my training process. So Kingzi turned her head and looked at Hu Tao intently. As I just mentioned, my training methods are extremely rigorous. If you keep pointing and gesturing, it will disrupt my rhythm. You just need to watch from the sidelines, and I guarantee I'll return a perfectly healthy near champion-level Pokémon to you in half a month. Hu Tao was taken aback by his serious gaze. She wanted to retort, but thinking of So Kingzi's Tokiwa power, she swallowed her words. All right, all right. Walnut waved her hand. I don't care, as long as you keep your promise. After paying the bill, So Kingzi stuffed the 2 large bags of supplies into her newly purchased spatial backpack. The two left the supermarket and walked towards the edge of the city. As you walk onto the main road leading out of the city, the tall buildings gradually thin out, and the view becomes more open. How do we get deeper into the forest? Walnut stopped and took out a pokeball. Walking is too slow, let's fly. She pressed the button, and a red light flashed. A gigantic Growlithe appeared in the middle of the road. This Arcanine has glossy fur, thick limbs, and exudes powerful fire-type energy. The moment it appeared, the surrounding air instantly became scorching hot. Passers-by and trainers alike stopped and stared in astonishment. What a cool Growlithe! This physique and aura, he's at least at the peak of the gym leader level. She might be close to breaking through to the quasi-heavenly king level. Who's this little girl? Passers-by whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with envy. Arcanine proudly raised its head and let out a majestic growl. Walnut patted Arcanine's neck triumphantly. How about it? She looked at King Z. My Growlithe is very fast, let's ride it into the forest. King Z glanced at Arcanine and shook her head. No. He pointed to the huge warning sign on the side of the road. No flying is permitted over the city and surrounding main roads, and large Pokémon are also prohibited from running at high speeds. You'll be fined if you get caught by the security forces. Hu Tao was stunned. What should we do then? Leave using teleportation. King Z spoke calmly. I'll teleport you directly to the outskirts. Hu Tao's eyes lit up. Great idea. She immediately took out a Pokeball and recalled Arcanine, who hadn't had enough of its display. Hu Tao grabbed King Z's arm and urged her excitedly. Quick, quick, I've never experienced being teleported by a human before. King Z glanced at her helplessly. His eyes glowed blue, and his superpowers activated instantly. Whoosh! The two figures vanished into thin air. Passers-by rubbed their eyes, their faces showing expressions of utter disbelief. After several short-distance teleportations, King Z brought Hu Tao to the outskirts of the city. This is the outer edge of Yangda Forest, lush with trees and rarely visited by people. King Z released Hu Tao's hand and let out a soft breath. Carrying someone in continuous teleportation consumes a significant amount of mental energy. Arrive. King Z took a luxurious black and gold ball from her waist. Next, we'll venture deeper into the forest and find a quiet place to train. He pressed the button and tossed the luxury ball into the air. Come out, Dragonite! A dazzling white light burst forth on the grass. With a deafening roar, Dragonite's massive body crashed to the ground. Boom! The ground shook violently, and the surrounding trees were blown about by the strong wind, their leaves falling in a rustling sound. The Dragonite was a size larger than its peers, standing like a small mountain in front of the two. The terrifying oppressive aura emanating from it materialized into a tidal wave, sweeping across the surrounding area. The wild elves on the outskirts of the forest fell silent instantly, all trembling on the ground in fear. Hu Tao was completely dumbfounded. Her legs went weak, and she involuntarily took 2 steps back, her plum blossom eyes wide with shock. This is... She stammered, her voice trembling. The pinnacle of championship. As the heir to the dojo, she has a good eye for talent. This Dragonite's aura is even more terrifying than the ace Pokémon of my elders at home. Hu Tao never expected that this boy, who was about the same age as her, would possess such a powerful spirit. Dragonite turned its head, its huge dragon eyes staring at Kurumi, and exhaled a puff of white breath from its nostrils. Upon seeing this, King Z immediately communicated with Dragonite using telepathy. Tone it down, don't scare your sugar daddy. She's a big boss who invested 2.5 million. Upon hearing that it was a big spender, Dragonite's sharp eyes instantly softened. It immediately suppressed its destructive aura, and even grinned, giving Walnut a honest and simple smile. Hu Tao looked at Dragonite's arms, which were thicker than her waist, and swallowed hard. She forced out a smile that looked worse than crying. King Z flipped over and leaped onto the broad back of the Dragonite. He looked at the walnuts. You ride your Growlithe and follow. Let's fly further in and find a suitable place to set up camp. Hu Tao nodded repeatedly, frantically pulling out a Pokeball. A flash of red light, and Arcanine reappeared on the grass. This time, however, it completely lacked the imposing presence it had displayed in the city. As soon as Arcanine appeared, it could feel the powerful aura lingering from Dragonite. Its fur stood on end, its tail was tucked tightly between its legs, and it let out a fearful whimper. The speed dog's limbs were weak, and it could barely stand, let alone run. It glanced cautiously at the Dragonite, then immediately lay down on the ground, too frightened to move. Hu Tao looked at her usually arrogant Growlithe and gritted her teeth in anger. But she also knew that it wasn't Growlithe's fault. The Near King is worlds apart from the champion, this is an absolute suppression due to bloodline and level. Walnut scrambled up onto the Growlithe's back, clinging tightly to its fur. Hurry up! She lowered her voice and urged him on. Arcanine stood up shakily, tucked its tail between its legs, and cautiously followed behind Dragonite. Sitting on Arcanine's back, Hu Tao watched the back of Dragonite ahead and mentally ranted. The power of the Viridian, a superpower, and the ability to casually pull out a champion-level Dragonite. What kind of monster partner did I end up with? She lowered her voice and urged him on. Arcanine stood up shakily, tucked its tail between its legs, and cautiously followed behind Dragonite. Sitting on Arcanine's back, Hu Tao looked at the figure in front of her sitting on Dragonite's back and mentally ranted. The power of the Viridian, a superpower, and the ability to casually pull out a champion-level Dragonite. What kind of monster partner did I end up with? Chapter 12. Dragonite's massive body swept across the sky above the great forest, stirring up a gust of wind. So King Z patted Dragonite's neck. Dragonite understood immediately, folded its massive wings, and swooped down towards the shimmering lake below. Walnut rode on her Growlithe, following closely behind. The two sprites landed smoothly on the open ground by the lake. The terrain here is flat and offers a wide view. There's a lake in front, and a forest behind. Walnut jumped off the back of the Growlithe and rubbed her stiff cheeks. Are we going to camp here? Walnut looked around, somewhat puzzled. Why choose such an obvious location by the lake when there are so many secluded spots deep in the forest? So King Z jumped off Dragonite's back and casually retrieved it into a luxury ball. Your burning bug is a fire-type specializer. So King Z walked to the lakeside and tested the water temperature. Special training starts tomorrow, and we'll definitely be using a lot of fire-type skills. During special training in the dense forest, a single burst of flame could set the entire forest ablaze. The location was chosen by the lake, it's spacious, and there's always a water source to extinguish the fire, preventing potential fires. Hu Tao suddenly realized and slapped her forehead. That's right. I usually train in the dojo's fire prevention area, and I forgot that outdoor areas are prone to fires. So King Z ignored her sigh and picked up the two deluxe balls. Time to get out and work. Two flashes of white light appeared. Garchomp and Gallade appeared in the open area. As soon as Garchomp emerged, it let out a deep roar that shook the leaves. Gallade stood quietly to the side, its blades gleaming coldly in the sunlight. Hu Tao instinctively took a step back. These two Elite 4-level mid-tier Pokémon are incredibly intimidating. Go, build a house. So King Z pointed to the center of the open space. Hu Tao froze, blinked, thinking she had misheard. Build a house. Walnut took a portable tent out of her spatial backpack. I brought the highest-end outdoor tent, it's windproof, waterproof, and warm, and can be set up in 10 minutes. Who wants to live in one of those stuffy, unventilated tents? So King Z glanced at the tent with disdain. In the center of the arena, Garchomp had already moved. It slammed its legs down onto the ground. The energy of the terrestrial system surged wildly. Rock blockade! A deafening roar erupted, and the ground cracked open. Huge blocks of rock rose from the ground. They didn't just scatter randomly, instead, they were arranged neatly in mid-air. Garchomp swings its claws, precisely controlling the trajectory of each rock. The rocks are joined together perfectly. In less than half a minute, 4 sturdy stone walls rose from the ground. Garchomp also thoughtfully included 2 square windows and a rectangular doorway. Then, it activated its energy again. A huge, flat stone slab rose into the air and steadily covered the stone wall as a roof. A sturdy and spacious stone house appeared out of nowhere. Hu Tao stood there, completely dumbfounded. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and her mouth gaped open wide enough to fit a fist. This is a rock blockade. Hu Tao gasped, her voice trembling. Isn't rock blockade meant to restrict movement and smash people? Whose Elite 4 level Pokémon used Rock Totem to build a wall? She ran over and reached out to touch the stone wall. There wasn't a single gap between the stone bricks, they were as smooth as if they had been machine cut. Before she could even catch her breath, Gallade also began to act. Gallade walked up to a thick, large tree. His eyes glowed blue as he activated his mental blade. An invisible spiritual force transformed into a sharp blade, instantly severing the tree in half. The tree fell, and Gallade swung its arms wildly. Wood chips flew everywhere. The rough tree trunk was quickly cut into planks of uniform thickness and strips of uniform size. Gallade picked up the planks and strips of wood without using nails or glue. Its hands moved nimbly, joined together using mortise and tenon joints. In just a few minutes, a single bed, a square table, and 2 wooden chairs were completed. Finally, Gallade cut out 2 louvered wooden windows and a wooden door, and installed them precisely in place. The entire process was smooth and seamless, without a single unnecessary movement. Hu Tao was completely stunned. She looked at the stone house, then at the wooden furniture, and her mind went completely blank. You. Hu Tao turned her head and looked at So Kingzi, stammering. You 2 elves. Why are they so skilled? Hu Tao felt that her worldview had been severely impacted. A celestial level Pokémon is a prized asset that any faction would treat as a trump card. Aside from battling, I usually just enjoy the benefits of top-tier resources. Who would be so bored as to practice bricklaying and carpentry, and become even more skilled than an experienced craftsman? So Kingzi pulled out a wooden chair, sat down, and crossed her legs. I grew up in the wild. So Kingzi's tone was flat. You can't sleep in a tree branch all day, exposed to the wind and sun. Building houses is just a daily routine for us. The more you practice, the more proficient you'll become. Hu Tao swallowed hard and looked down at the tent in her hand. I instantly felt that this thing was utter garbage. She threw the tent on the ground and ran quickly to So Kingzi. I don't want to sleep in a tent anymore. Hu Tao tugged at So Kingzi's sleeve, her eyes full of expectation. Could you build me a stone house too? I'll pay. How about 10,000 alliance coins per room? So Kingzi raised an eyebrow. Okay. He turned to look at Garchomp. Get another one. Garchomp snorted and lifted its foot again. Rumble. 2 minutes later, an identical stone house rose from the ground, right next to So Kingzi's. Gallade cooperated, cutting a bed and a set of tables and chairs to put inside. Hu Tao cheered and ran into her new house, excitedly touching and looking at it from all angles. She ran out, looked at So Kingzi, and her eyes were full of admiration. So Kingzi, how did you train your elf to be like this? Walnut sat on another wooden chair, humbly seeking guidance. I've seen quite a few Elite 4 level Pokémon, but none of them have such abnormal control over their moves. So Kingzi leaned back in her chair, her expression turning serious. Because trainers these days have all gone astray. Most people only care about the Pokémon's level and skill power. They see Rock Blockade as smashing people, and Mental Blade as cutting people. The skills are in their hands, they're fixed, rigid procedures. So Kingzi stretched out a finger and drew a circle in the air. But I'm different. I don't just focus on leveling up my Pokémon, I value the in-depth development and mastery of their skills. Energy is dynamic, and skills should be dynamic too. When an elf's control over energy reaches its peak, it can change the form and purpose of its skills at will. Using it for bricklaying and carpentry is merely an external manifestation of energy control. So King Z paused, and the image of a pink kitten appeared in her mind. That's what Dream taught me. It can master all skills because it has grasped the essence of energy. Fantasy Westward Journey also highly approves of my training method. Hu Tao was stunned. She initially thought this was just a stunt by So King Z to improve her life. Unexpectedly, there was such a profound breeding theory behind it, and it even gained the recognition of the legendary Pokémon, Mew. A scene flashed through Hu Tao's mind. She thought of a friend in her circle. That friend has a terrifyingly powerful bear cub. During battles, that bear cub can use its cleave skill in creative ways, even using it to block energy attacks. At the time, she found it unbelievable. Now, after hearing So King Z's words, she suddenly felt a sense of clarity. So this is how truly top-tier trainers develop their skills. Been taught a lesson. Hu Tao nodded solemnly. Today has been truly eye-opening. No wonder you dared to say you could train my burning worm to near Elite 4 level in just half a month. I now completely believe you have the ability. Chapter 13. Walnut excitedly ran into her little stone house and began taking things out of her spatial backpack. Sleeping bag, cushion, portable dressing table. She filled the stone house to the brim, and was in a great mood. After arranging the room, as soon as Hu Tao stepped out of the stone house, a rich fragrance wafted into her nostrils. It smells so good. Walnut sniffed and followed the scent. At the edge of the open space, a large iron pot was set up. The charcoal fire burned evenly underneath. Gallade stood in front of the iron pot, an apron tied around her waist. It holds a kitchen knife in its right hand and a fresh tree fruit in its left. The blade flashed. The tree fruit was instantly chopped into uniform small pieces and fell into the porcelain bowl. Immediately afterwards, Gallade lifted the heavy iron pot with one hand. The ingredients in the pot tumbled in mid-air, evenly coated with the sauce. The movements were fluid and precise, with the timing and intensity perfect. Walnut stood there, her eyes wide open, bigger than copper bells. No way! Hu Tao gasped, her finger trembling as she pointed at Gallade. It can even cook. That knife skill, that wok-tossing technique, it's even more professional than the 5-star chef at my family's martial arts academy. She was shocked again. A celestial level Pokémon as a bricklayer? Forget about carpentry. Now he's even working part-time as a chef. How many training courses did this Gallade attend? Hu Tao turned her head, wanting to complain to So King Z. But when she turned around, she saw something even more outrageous. So King Z sat cross-legged on a large rock by the lake. Dozens of precious tree fruits of various colors floated in front of him. So King Z's eyes gleamed with a deep blue light as she unleashed her superpowers at full power. An invisible spiritual force enveloped the tree fruits. Under the pressure of superpowers, the outer skin of the tree fruit cracks, and pure juice and pulp essence are extracted. The residue, containing trace amounts of toxins and impurities, was precisely peeled off and fell to the ground. In mid-air, the essence of various tree fruits began to merge. So King Z gently moved her fingers, controlling the proportion and speed of the fusion. Soon, the essence of dozens of tree fruits condensed into more than a dozen crystal-clear square crystals. Top-tier energy block. As the gym heir, Walnut immediately recognized the quality of the energy cube. 100% purity. Hu Tao felt a chill run down his spine and stammered as he opened his mouth. It contains no impurities, the energy is completely contained. This is a top-tier energy cube that only a master breeder could create. She walked quickly to So King Z's side and looked at him as if he were a monster. Who exactly are you? Hu Tao finally couldn't hold back anymore. His strength is ridiculously high, he possesses superpowers and the power of Tokiwa. There are even master-level breeders now. Didn't you say you grew up in the wild? Where did this master from in the wild teach you these things? So King Z put the energy cube into the food storage container, clapped her hands, and stood up. The place I live in is rather unusual. So King Z spoke calmly, without explaining the existence of the world tree. Although it's in the wild, there's internet and various electronic devices there. I learned all of these breeders' knowledge by watching videos online. Upon hearing this, Hu Tao nearly coughed up blood. Learning online. She stomped her feet in anger. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? If master breeders could learn their techniques on their own, all breeders in the league would be out of a job. This requires extremely high levels of mental finesse and an absolute grasp of the pharmacology of tree fruits. 6. You're really something. If you don't want to talk about it, fine, but don't try to fob me off with this kind of talk. So King Z shrugged and didn't refute further. He was telling the truth. With superpowers assisting in micromanagement, plus the world tree's top quality berries for practice, it's not difficult at all to cultivate a master breeder. Dinner's ready. So King Z called out. The two walked to the square table and sat down. Gallade served 2 plates of delicious-looking rice bowls. Walnut also released her team of Pokémon, preparing to feed them. The red light flashed continuously. Charizard, Arcanine, and Flamewaker appeared in the open area one after another. While eating, So King Z used her superpowers to scan the 3 Pokémon. The team composition is good. So King Z swallowed a mouthful of rice and began to comment. Pure Fire Specialization. This Charizard is very well trained, with a robust physique and high temperature flames. It's already approaching the threshold of becoming a near elite 4 member. Growlithe is slightly weaker, at the peak of gym leader level, but its foundation is solid. As for this Firefly, So King Z's gaze fell on the burning insect. Champion potential, elite peak, truly only a hair's breadth away from a breakthrough. Hu Tao's hand, holding the spoon, paused. She stared at So King Z in utter shock. You saw right through them at a glance. She had never mentioned the levels of Charizard and Arcanine to So King Z. So King Z ignored her shock and pointed at the burning insect. After you finish eating, have a good talk with it. Give it a mental boost. So King Z's tone became serious. The grueling training will officially begin at daybreak tomorrow. I will use the most extreme real-world pressure to unleash its potential. The process will be extremely painful, even worse than death. If it abandons the training halfway through, or if you soften your stance and interfere, I won't refund the 2.5 million deposit. Upon hearing worse than death, the Firefly's fur stood on end, and it couldn't help but shudder. Hu Tao swallowed hard and nodded solemnly. Don't worry, I absolutely won't interfere. After dinner, it got completely dark. A profound silence fell over the forest. Hu Tao rubbed her full stomach and felt sticky all over. After a day of running around in the wild, all she wants now is a hot shower. But this is the middle of nowhere, where would we find hot water? So King Z stood up and walked to the open space behind the stone house. Dragonite! He shouted. The Dragonite's massive body emerged from the luxury ball. Get some bath water. So King Z issued the order. Dragonite nodded and opened its mouth wide. Water jet! A jet of clear water shot out from the mouth of the Dragonite, forming a giant water sphere in mid-air. Immediately afterwards, Dragonite raised its right claw. Flame fist! Its claws were engulfed in raging flames. Instead of shooting out the flames, it gently placed its claws beneath the water sphere. An astonishing scene unfolded. Dragonite used the high temperature of its fire punch to heat the water balloon from a distance. Wisps of hot air rose from inside the water sphere, and the temperature rose rapidly. Dragonite's control over energy has reached an unparalleled level. The water flow did not dissipate, nor did the flames go out. The temperature is precisely controlled at around 40 degrees Celsius. So King Z took off her coat and stepped into the stone bath that Garchomp had dug in advance. Dragonite controlled the warm water, slowly pouring it into the stone pool. A completely natural, temperature-controlled hot bath in the wild is now ready. Walnut hid in the corner of the stone house, peeking out half her head and secretly watching this side. When she saw Dragonite use water jet and fire punch to boil the bath water, she was completely stunned. A Dragonite at its peak, used as a champion, was actually used as a water heater. This level of extravagance was enough to make even a Chable heiress feel her scalp tingle. So King Z soaked in the hot water and let out a long sigh of relief. He turned his head and looked at Walnut hiding around the corner. "What are you looking at? Shameless." So King Z didn't hold back in her criticism. "Who peeked?" Hu Tao jumped out from around the corner, her face flushed, glaring at him angrily. "I want to wash too." She pointed to the steaming stone pool and shouted with righteous indignation. "Have Dragonite prepare a tub of hot water for me too. I want to take a bath, and I want to learn how to bathe outdoors." Chapter 14. Hu Tao looked at the hot water in the stone pool with envy. "You're living such a comfortable life in the wild." Walnut circled the stone pool twice. "I've decided, I'm going to buy a rock-type Pokémon when I get back. It was specifically used for building houses and digging bath houses." So King Z leaned against the edge of the bathtub, closing her eyes to enjoy the warm water. Rock-type Pokémon are all very stubborn. If you want them to do bricklaying work, you'll have to put in a lot of effort to train them. So King Z replied casually. "TCH, I have plenty of money." Walnut stood with her hands on her hips, looking completely self-righteous. "Smash the high-level energy blocks, and they won't listen." So King Z soaked in the water for more than 10 minutes and felt completely comfortable. He stood up from the water, grabbed some clean clothes from the side, and changed into them. "Dragonite, drain the wastewater." So King Z issued the order. Dragonite extended its claw and gently patted the bottom of the stone pool. A fist-sized drainage hole suddenly cracked open at the bottom of the stone pool. Wastewater flowed through the underground passage and into the adjacent soil. After the water was drained, Dragonite used water jet again to fill the pool with clear water. "The water is ready." So King Z dried her hair and turned to look at Hu Tao. "You can heat the water yourself using a fire-type Pokémon." Hu Tao pointed to her nose, somewhat dumbfounded. "I can't. My Charizard and Arcanine only know how to breathe fire and fight, they don't know how to control the temperature and heat the bath water." So King Z sighed.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं, फिल्मोरा है ना?